Under the soft light of morning, a cup of coffee steams on a quiet kitchen table, the same cup that has started every day for decades, the same comfort, the same warmth. But one morning, I stared into that cup and realized something I had ignored for years. I wasn't getting weaker because of age. I was getting weaker because I had stopped paying attention. See, that's how it happens, not all at once. Not in a dramatic moment, but slowly, one skipped stretch, one shorter walk, one morning where the coffee replaces breakfast, and another where you tell yourself you'll exercise tomorrow. And before you know it, your reflection looks back with softer arms, slower steps, and a little more fear than you'd like to admit. But something changed that morning. It began with a simple question. When did growing old start to mean giving up? I remember looking at my hands. They used to hold lives steady, perform delicate work. Now they trembled slightly as I poured the coffee. And across the table sat one of my patients, an 80-year-old woman with bright eyes and a steady smile. She had been coming to me for years, yet somehow she seemed stronger every visit. I asked her, half joking, what her secret was. She smiled and said, I just changed how I start my mornings. That sentence stayed with me, not because of what she said, but because of how she said it, calm, certain, like she knew something the rest of us had forgotten. So I started paying attention again. I began watching my patients, my friends, my peers. Some grew frail far too soon. Others somehow stayed steady, vibrant, even joyful. And the difference wasn't in their genetics or even their medications. It was in the small choices they made every morning. Aging isn't the enemy, neglect is. We don't lose strength because the years steal it. We lose it because we stop feeding it body and soul. Every decade, the body sheds muscle quietly, the way trees lose leaves in autumn. It's called sarcopenia, the slow fading of strength we once took for granted. And it creeps in while we're busy convincing ourselves that slowing down is natural. But it doesn't have to be this way. I've seen men and women in their 70s lift grocery bags with ease. I've seen grandmothers carry toddlers again, laughing with the joy they thought was behind them. I've seen hope come back to faces that had accepted defeat, not because they found a miracle, but because they changed one simple thing: the way they began their mornings. Most people think that coffee is just caffeine and comfort, a small ritual that wakes the senses. But for many, it's also the start of a slow surrender, black liquid on an empty stomach, draining the body rather than fueling it. What if that first cup could do more than wake you? What if it could rebuild you? Not with expensive powders or empty promises, but with simple, honest things, the kind of ingredients that once filled your grandmother's kitchen. A pinch of cinnamon to steady your blood sugar, a spoon of cocoa to open your blood vessels and carry oxygen to your muscles, a touch of milk or soy milk to feed the protein your body is desperate for, collagen to mend what's been worn, chia to quiet inflammation and settle the gut, a drop of MCT oil for steady energy, not spikes and crashes, and that humble pair, turmeric and black pepper, to fight the silent fires of aging. Small, familiar things, not magic, just wisdom rediscovered, because strength doesn't vanish, it hides behind consistency. Behind care. I remember Margaret, she was 72 and every step hurt. Her daughter was looking into assisted living because Margaret couldn't lift her laundry anymore, but she refused to give in. She began rebuilding her mornings, not with machines or pills, but with simple nourishment and slow movement. 8 weeks later, she wasn't just lifting her laundry, she was helping her neighbor move furniture. And the day she walked into my office smiling, carrying a bag of oranges, I realized something profound. Strength is not reserved for the young. It's reclaimed by the willing. Then there was Robert, 78, a craftsman with hands once steady enough to carve wood like lace. But tremors and weakness had forced him to abandon his workshop. When he started fueling his mornings differently, when he began believing he could still improve, his hands grew steady again. Within months, he was building rocking chairs for his grandchildren. And Helen, 67, soft-spoken, gentle, she once told me, I feel like I'm fading. But 8 weeks later, her voice was strong, her eyes alive. I carried all my groceries in one trip, she said, laughing. I didn't think I'd ever say that again. These aren't miracles, they're proof of what the human body can do when you give it permission. Growing older isn't about decline. It's about redesign, finding new ways to support the same spirit that's been there all along. You see, every morning is a crossroads. Two paths sit before you, one of routine, one of renewal. One that says this is just how aging works, and one that whispers, what if it doesn't have to be? You don't need to run marathons or climb mountains. You only need to show up for yourself, for your mornings, for the quiet choice that says, I'm not done yet. Because every muscle that weakens can still remember how to be strong. Every joint that aches can still learn how to move again. And every heart that feels tired can still find rhythm in a single act of care. So tomorrow morning, when you stand in your kitchen and the world is quiet, look at that cup of coffee. Ask yourself, is this helping me build or is it helping me fade? And then maybe, just maybe, change what you stir into it. The secret isn't the ingredients themselves. It's the act of choosing, of saying, I will not go gently into weakness. That choice rewires something deeper than muscle. It rebuilds confidence, it reignites purpose. I've seen men who thought they'd never work in their garden again, kneel among their roses. I've seen women who believed their days of independence were over, drive again, dance again, laugh again. And it always begins with one quiet act, caring for yourself before the day asks you to care for anyone else. Because when you reclaim your mornings, you reclaim your power. Somewhere right now, there's a person looking down at their hands, wondering when they became so fragile. There's a person rubbing an aching knee, thinking it's too late. There's a person who misses the feeling of being capable of doing something simple, like opening a jar or climbing stairs without fear. To that person, I'd say you haven't lost your strength. You've just stopped giving it attention. Your body is still listening. It still remembers how to rebuild. All it needs is the right signal, a little nourishment, a little movement, a little belief. And it starts with the way you greet your morning. I once thought medicine was only about prescriptions and procedures, but after decades of watching people heal and fail to heal, I've learned something deeper. Medicine begins long before a diagnosis. It begins in the quiet spaces of our lives where choices are small but powerful. The way we breathe, the way we eat, the way we wake up, that's where strength lives. That's where aging gracefully truly begins. So don't underestimate your mornings. They are more than routine. They are rehearsal for how you'll live the rest of your life. Every sunrise is another invitation. Another chance to feed your body what it needs, to move the way it remembers, to believe that growing older can mean growing wiser, not weaker. Someday, years from now, someone will ask how you stayed so strong. You might smile and say, I just changed how I start my mornings. Because that's where renewal lives, not in some faraway secret, but right there, between your first breath and your first sip of the day. So when tomorrow comes and the coffee is warm in your hands, pause, look at it, and remind yourself this isn't just coffee, it's a promise to stand taller, to move freer. To live longer, not in years, but in strength, clarity, and courage. Your age does not define your limits. Your choices do, so start again tomorrow, not for youth, but for the life still waiting within you.